Hey, everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is celebrated sommelier Pascaline Lepeltier. She grew up in the Loire Valley and detoured from a master's degree in philosophy and a career as a university professor. She began her obsession with wine at the two-star Michelin-rated L'Auberge Bretonne under the celebrated chef Jacques Thorel. While working as beverage director at Rouge Tomate in Brussels, she interned at Georges V in Paris under the direction of Best European Sommelier and Best World Sommelier runner-up Eric Beaumar. Promoted to the position of beverage director for the Rouge Tomate flagship restaurant in New York City, she moved to Manhattan in 2009. The New York Times prized her Rouge Tomate wine list as one of the best in NYC in 2013, and the World of Fine Wine awarded it Best Long Wine List in the World 2017 and Wine List of the Year 2017. Currently, she is a partner with David Lillie and Racines NYC, one of the top wine destinations in the U.S. She overlooks a 2,000 plus wine list focusing on vin de vigneron, mostly organic, biodynamic, and natural wines. And she is a sommelier of the highest credentials. Welcome, Pascaline. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
That was already way too long, way too kind. So
I was going to say the Black Wine Guy is going to award you the longest intro award,
Eh
2021.
bien voilà, one more line on the resume.
I'm going to give you a statue that looks like that.
Great.
Put
I will bring the champagne for the award.
Wonderful. I would love you to bring the champagne. So Pascaline and I connected actually through mutual friend and former podcast guest Audrey Frick. So Pascaline, tell us what you brought. What are we drinking this afternoon?
I brought you wine from Vermont. Nice smile.
Okay, all right. Yeah. What's the wine? Is it an indigenous grape to Vermont? Or is it a cider?
Don't be scared. It's gonna be good. I just want to drink good wine from now on. I have no time for bad wine anymore. Life is too short. So.
I wholly agree. I totally agree. Awesome. So it really is a pleasure to have you here. You are really accomplished. I mean, I could have took up like at least 10, 15 minutes with all your accomplishments. But let's get some wine flowing and let's start talking about what it was like to grow up in the Loire Valley.
You want me to open first or to start to flow my
history? Let's do a story, right? Because I follow you on Instagram and I've seen you in the movies, and I from that I know I never really picked up on the Loire Valley, but now the whole Chenin makes sense. I know you're.
Chenin. I told you.
Foam.
It's very natural. You were asking about natural wine.
Yes.
Here's the example. That's very alive.
Yeah. So no, actually that's cool. It didn't explode because then it would have been a first here on the Black Wine Guy Experience.
Yeah. No, I chilled enough, so hopefully.
Wonderful.
Some bubbles.
A little something for my producer. Thank you.
So, sorry, I'm a little.
It's okay. I know, and we're practicing precautions for your guests.
Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
So, what was to grow up in the Loire Valley? I was extremely lucky to grow up in this part of the world, and like a lot of people, you don't realize how lucky you are until you leave that part of the world, and you realize, oh my God, that was very. No, I grew up in a mid-sized town, quite progressive town, with just very lucky to be surrounded very closely by nature, but to have a lot of access to both history and culture in my little town. And the Loire is a very mild climate, very rich in a lot of natural beauties, gardens, and all that, and really living history. When I grew up, every year I had friends living in castle. It's just, and I'm from the middle part of the Loire. I'm in an area called the Anjou, so I kind of mid distance between Paris and the ocean. So as soon as I could be a teenager, you could take a train to the ocean, you can take a train to Paris. Everything was kind of closed. No, it was awesome, and I was in a city that has always had a very, very rich culture, as I say, story. So a lot of university, a lot of foreign students. So from all disciplines, medicine, mathematics, arts, all that. We had an independent film festival. We had, and it's not being a very big city, it's not very expensive too. So my parents are, middle class people, but you could have access to a lot of things. So I grew up, I would say, privileged in a way that everything was easily accessible, and I could be very exposed to a lot very early on. So very classic. Grew up, my loving family, and parents that were really open to let me do things. I was quite energetic, so they were trying to find me any kind of activities to kind of tame that. So I was able to do music or sports or stuff like that. I was very lucky. So I grew up like that.
Oh my God! It sounds just like how I grew up in New Jersey.
I felt some proximity often between the Loire and New Jersey. Yeah.
I mean, you grew up in Anjou. I grew up near Asbury Park. It's the same thing. It's just take away all the cultural history, take away the castles, take away the centuries of culture, the fine food and wine, take it all away. We basically grew up the same.
But once again, it's something you grow up and oh shit, I'm going to visit again a castle, or man, I don't want to do, no, you're at school and I don't want to see that. I don't care about this like Roman ruins, and you just don't realize how lucky it is to be fed by that since you're a kid.
Yeah.
To be able to go to the market every day, because you have a green market every day, and your vegetable costs nothing, and you can buy your pig or your meat at the local butcher that's getting 10 miles from you. So, when you grow up with that and it's normal, you just don't understand how chance that you have to live that. And this is why I feel, in fact, extraordinarily lucky to have been able to live and travel and go apart, to realize how things are different and how we need to fight, and I give access to this kind of thing to way more people, the way I grew up.
Sure. No, I wholly agree. Did you have a big family, or how many people? You have any siblings, or?
No, I had we have quite a tight family. I have a brother and sister. I lost my sister when I was quite young.
Sorry.
That life, but he definitely had a massive impact on the way we're seeing life. It made our family in a way stronger. This is why you realize also that nothing is forever, and so I'm close to my family. But I decided to move away. But but my family is very important. But we are quite different also.
Sure.
In a lot of ways.
Sure. And Anjou is actually well, I mean, I know Anjou as a wine region within Loire. I would assume, did your family do anything with wine, or you said you nothing? Was it part of your life, or was anybody actually involved in wine in any way growing up?
Not at all, and not even in restaurants. Wow. No, not at all. No, I grew up really by vineyards. My best friends, in fact, the parents still live just next door to one of the most famous vineyards in France. But I got into wine when I was 25. No parents. My mom is a teacher. My father worked in the car industry. So nobody in the family was in wine at all. They were drinking supermarket red Bordeaux.
But but for the record, supermarket red Bordeaux in Loire Valley is not the same as so what? Okay, so yeah.
Maybe it's not. No, it's maybe you have a little bit more history of craft, because we are talking about hundreds of history of winemaking in Bordeaux. But my parents were not foodies, and my parents definitely didn't really care for wine. My mom was not drinking wine. My father was just drinking a bit of red wine, and that's pretty much it. And it was known for just could have been beer. It could have been anything else. Oh, so no, wine was not in my landscape.
Okay.
Came later.
Yeah, it came later. So you mentioned that. You said you really didn't get into wine until you were 25.
Mm.
How'd that come about?
It came about as wine became a solution, in fact.
A solution.
A solution. I'm not the only one. I think that. No, but I was very lucky. I just wanted to become a philosophy teacher, and I studied philosophy very hard and very deeply. And I burnt out. Literally, did a breakdown, burnt out before getting my diploma to teach, and I was too young for a lot of reasons. And wine saved me because. After my burnout, I couldn't just do anything for 6 months, couldn't walk on the street. It was a very deep depression,
Wow.
very, very bad depression. And didn't want to take any medication at all. And my mom said, you have to occupy your brain. And she said, just find a job. And before that, I didn't have to really have a job. I was at school. My parents were paying for stuff, no jobs, really, small jobs. And so one of my philosophy teachers liked wine, and he said, why don't you try to go to a wine shop? And why not? And I went, and suddenly wine, before I was drinking, like every kid in France, you start to drink, you're 1 or 2 years old in France. Mm-hmm. No, it's a little bit later, but you are exposed to alcohol quite. It's part of the culture,
Right. It's not as stigmatized as it is here.
It's not as stigmatized as here, and it's really part of the culture. It's not like you're drinking, but a little bit of wine with a meal or like a celebration. Right. And so I was drinking, but I was drinking beer or like cocktails or stuff disgusting, and wine wasn't there. But that moment was my philosophy teacher that happened to like Burgundy told me, look into wine. And I looked in, I just suddenly said, well, what that exactly? And I started in that one shop, and I found what I was looking in philosophy. Like suddenly wine became not just a beverage or something but it became something that I could touch, work with my hand, but became also what philosophy was for me, which is a way of seeing the world. I always thought philosophy is not a discipline of you are learning something. You just learn how to ask questions through it, and you can ask questions about any subject. And I realized, with wine, I could satisfy that quest of knowledge through something that was deeply rooted and grounded all over, mostly all over the world, especially now. You grow grapes pretty much everywhere. And on the other end, with extraordinarily strong cultural, how can I say, rich, because one has been so part of so many aspects of certain human culture, from economics to aesthetics to moral to religion and all that. And so suddenly through that spectrum, I could be grounded and satisfied all my questions. And it was simple. And that was very important. I feel very lucky because I found wine, because I find a way of related to the world in this kind of simple way. Give me a glass of wine and it talks to me. And I often refer that to music or sports, when you have a connection with an instrument.
Yeah.
You don't know, it's simple. It talks to you. You can listen to music, you get the beat, you can... Okay, I'm a terrible musician. I tried the catastrophe karaoke with me, like my staff, every time they're laughing their ass off because I'm singing so badly.
Well, karaoke's supposed to be that way.
But that bad is really
not
hard.
Fun. I mean, like karaoke in LA is not fun because people who actually are trying to get a record contract go to karaoke, and even in New York, like you could sing. That's not like, that's not fun. Fun is like. We're drinking. We had some cocktails, and now Pascaline's gonna go sing to everybody. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's
you will definitely be laughing on the floor. That would be great.
I did karaoke a few weeks ago, and thank God, down in Central Florida, that was crazy. Kind of rocked the mic, but I had a lot of Coronas in me. I did. Now,
There's a beer, right?
yeah, it's a beer. Because I was in a bar. I'll show you pictures, but I don't even think I don't even think they had, you know, White Zinfandel. I mean, they had no wine. So
Sometimes it's better.
and that's why I was like, you know what,
That's a sign.
it's gonna be a beer night tonight. You know?
That's a sign. More bathroom, but less headaches.
Yeah.
Usually it's like how it works.
For sure. So
yeah, but to go back, yeah. So wine just talk to me.
Yeah.
Like wine was like, oh wow, I can taste. I love that. I can remember stuff. And so when people are like, wow, it's awesome, wine. I'm like, you know, guys, it's just because I found something I could connect to, and I deeply believe everybody can have that connection with something in his life.
Yeah.
It just I was lucky to have that happen and cross my path, and that became wine, and that was a no return point. So 23, I started to work in restaurant too. I liked it, but from that 23-ish on to 25 was, let's see what wine is about. 25, I decided to work full time in wine.
Very nice, very nice. Speaking of wine, tell me about this. Is tasty. This is
tasty. Interesting.
It's interesting. Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. Is it orange? Is it natural? Is it like?
It's orange.
Okay.
It's natural.
Okay. And it's from Vermont. I feel like I'm in philosophy class. It's making me work for it.
What is the essence of wine?
Yes.
No, I brought you wine from a woman or a couple, Deirdre and Caleb, that are behind a project called La Garagista, which is a farm project in Vermont that's been around now for more or less, I think, more than 10 to 15 years. I brought you that for a couple of reasons. First, this wine is made with a hybrid grape.
Okay.
So it's made with a grape called La Créchante. Hybrids mean that it's a cross between European grapes, the vinifera, and American grape. And people have been talking a lot of hybrids recently as a potential to grow in more difficult wine region in terms of growing condition for cold, but also to decrease the amount of pesticide use, because you are using some of the quality of defense of the American vine to be able to boost the immune system of the European vine. So you see more and more wine coming from hybrid as a solution in terms of farming. She's working with hybrid for that reason, because in Vermont, it's a wine region that never really existed. We are at the limit of wine growing condition in a certain way, not very far from Canada. She's in Lake Champlain. And her project was a couple of years ago, to start a restaurant. She learned how to cook with her husband in Italy, and they went back to Vermont, where they were from, and to do an osteria, where they were going to grow all their vegetables and to cook that in their little restaurant. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to make wine. So she started to try to plant classic vinifera like Pinot Noir and Gruner Veltliner. And she realized that without using heavy chemicals and a lot of intervention, it was almost impossible. So our farming was from the beginning close to regenerative in permaculture. So how to grow multiple crops locally with no use of chemicals. And she realized that there is things you can't grow. There is things that even though that you want and we have the technology for it, maybe it doesn't worth to do it, just because the consequences of your intervention are going to damage, pollute, or have really, really issues for the future. So she decided to uproot all the vinifera that she had and started to work with hybrids that have been doing very well. It's a very strange taste wine. You probably never tasted something like that.
No.
So it's kind of normal, because you are kind of at the crossing of a lot of influence. Mm-hmm. One of the parents of that grapes is a grape that you know, which is a Muscat or Moscato. Mm-hmm. So you probably are picking up a little bit of that florality and the rose and orange and all that. But the other grapes, they are the American grapes. They have the Riparia and all that you may know because you get some jelly or grape juice, like Concord juice.
Concord grape.
So
Smucker's jam.
Yeah,
jelly.
So it's not Concord, but you may think about this more a lot of aromas you may associate with jam and all that. So it's a new world of expression. People are saying that they can't express, quote unquote, terroir. And we go to big words about wines that have been building the kind of mythology of wine. Grapes is an extraordinary fruit that indeed has this ability, when it's fermented, to express a place and a craft out of every plant that you're growing in the world. Maybe coffee, tea can do that, but grapes have been grown and definitely developed to do that to a certain level. And I really think this wine, with these hybrids, can start to say that there is a sense of place for an area like Vermont, because you couldn't really produce this kind of wine anywhere else in the world. So we are kind of seeing history being written. And that's something that is very important, because wine, once again, I was just saying, there is a lot of mythology around wine, and one of them is the tradition, the history, untouchable history. And that's not true. History has always been extraordinarily dynamic. We are just having one perspective of what the history was from the past, which is usually history is written by the winner, is what is told. And this one is kind of reminding us that it's way more complicated than that. And it's always all about a dynamic process of a connection between a will of somebody, a place, nature, what's happening in terms of the technology at that very same time to produce something that will have a moment in history. And also brought that because I think it's great. It's natural. So not only she's really experimenting with techniques of farming that are very progressist for multiple crop without any chemicals, but she's of course doing the production of the wine without having any additives. So this is maybe what we can call natural wine, which doesn't exist, of course, because wine per se can't be natural, because wine is a cultural product. But when we are saying that wine is natural, it just means that the natural process that surrounds us in nature are done in such a way that human intervention can be taken to the lowest, and yet allow us to enjoy a product of a fermentation that is tasty, that is linked to its place, that is stable, and that can connect people. So that's that. So that's nothing in this wine. She makes a second fermentation, so it's made like a champagne style or traditional style. She does skin contact on the first one. So this wine should taste like nothing else, but it doesn't really matter, because I think what matters here is like when you're listening to, once again, to new music, like an atonal music, something you never heard before. Probably won't like it, but you're going to just realize that there is things that you never heard before, and suddenly your landscape is just going to be broadened up by 1,000, and like shit. And I was tasting with that, and now I can taste that. And that's the potential of openness. This is what I like in this wine.
Well, it's very tasty. I have to admit, because I throw shade at natural wine. But this is very tasty. And thank you for really explaining and breaking down and, getting into the hybrids and how also the farming practices. And I like what you said about a sense of place. But yeah, this is something I would drink this summer. Absolutely. I mean, you could drink any time, but like it's like you said, it has a little petulance, it's a little fizzante, delicious, just delicious. So,
what would you eat with that?
What would I eat with that? Yeah, let's see. I'd probably start with that. So a charcuterie, some cheeses, some cured meats. Yeah, I think that would be fine. What would you pair with this?
I think you can do a lot. I like the way you're thinking about meat with that, because we are still so full of white wine goes with fish and red wine goes with meat. It's time to it's time to move away from a lot of the a lot of prejudices. I will have so much fun. I'm very lucky. I work with an amazing chef at the restaurant with also a partner. His name is Diego Moya, and Diego is a genius of vegetable. So we're doing veggie in all shape and forms. And right now he's doing a crazy beautiful dish inspired by his origin is American and Chilean from his parents. And he makes that cabbage, brine the cabbage. It's a carrot cabbage. Brine it, and then grilled a tiny bit of duck fat. And right now he's doing
It's a winner. It's a winner.
Just think about that.
It's
so I like
duck
vegetable.
fat. It's a winner. It's a winner.
I thought we were talking about Caraflex cabbage is a winner. Caraflex cabbage is a new bacon.
Yeah. What is it? It's cabbage bacon. It's better than bacon.
No, but you can drink a lot of stuff with that. That's what I love. I don't do my pairings the same way I was doing it a couple of years ago because I was still very at school. And when you're in France, there is a classic wine pairing you need to learn. Blah blah blah. Also, I'm more talking about energy.
Yeah.
So here, I think you need something with a lot of energy. Like the stuff is going in every direction possible. So whatever you are picking can be meat, it can be veggie, it can be fish. You need to have a product that is really full of energy in its own. You need to have a really well-grown product that has enough stuffing to be able to kind of react every time you are picking up something on that. So I'm building my pairing now with energy more than with flavor and structure.
Oh shit! This is a new one. I'm loving it. I mean, school is in. You are. I am in wine philosophy class with Professor Lepeltier.
I'm so sorry.
I'm
so sorry.
I'm probably going to get a D or an F, but I'll enjoy it.
No, I don't believe in grade either, so you can see.
Oh, my God. Yes. Score.
Score.
So you said from 23 to 25, you were dipping your toe in it, and at 25, you were like, okay, I'm so glad I found wine. And how did you land the gig at L'Auberge Bretonne? That's kind of a big deal, right? It's a little two Michelin star.
Yeah, that's yeah, that was a big deal. The restaurant is closed now from that chef. He retired, but at that time was definitely one of the greatest winists in France. How did I do? I just went, took my little resume, and just was banging on the doors to get an internship. And I got refused a lot, in fact. I was a 25 years old woman, never had experience in restaurants. With all my philosophy diploma, because I couldn't go in hospitality school, I decided to do 2 MBAs just for the fun in hospitality management. So I was like, I was arriving, and my diploma, it was like, bam, bam, bam. I was like, hi, I want to be a sommelier. And sommelier in France, you have to understand, it's not at all what's happening in the US with sommelier is so not what's happening in France with sommelier. When you go in hospitality school in France, is because it's a little bit not as true anymore, but at my time was a major failure. Like for my parents, for me to leave university and to say, I'm going to go to hospitality school, it was like kind of, it was like you go there because you can't do anything else with your life. Is that the image was that bad, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I was going to try to enter hospitality school with my diploma, they say, don't do that. You are too many diplomas, go back to university, get a real career. You are losing your time. We don't want you here. So my only way to get into that was to, in fact, go more to university and get more diplomas to enter for the...
How many degrees or diplomas do you possess? I'm just curious.
No, but it's just, it's you when you get in, like it's in France, it's rolling them over. Anyway. But so people just didn't want me. They were like, no, you... even like women, I went to apply in that restaurant. She was one of the very few women sommelier wine director in France, and I was like, I want to work with you. And I was like, I don't know a shit about wine, but I can promise I learn very fast.
I can attest to that. I've only been with her for like 30 minutes. I can attest to the fact that you learn very fast just by what you're sharing.
But so she said no. She said, I don't trust you. You should go back. This is not a job for you, and you're going to be disappointed. It's not going to be satisfying. I'm not taking you. And so I probably got 30 plus refusal before that gentleman said yes. Once, because I was a woman, so a lot of places were not taking women at the time. Second, I was already too old. Third, I had no experience. Fourth, I was already asking way too many questions. So they were like, no way. You're just like out. Third, I don't know anything with my hands. You gave me a tray. Like I dropped the glasses within 2 minutes. I'm terrible. I'm still terrible with tray. Like it's, but that chef took me, and because he had a very massive bibliothèque, and he wanted me to help him also to arrange the bibliothèque at the end of the night. And it's like you come, and he was also a chef that was working with women.
Okay.
And that's something very important. We're talking a lot about women, and we have so much work to do as women leaders in our industry at multiple levels. But without men at that time that gave me my first chance, I wouldn't be there today. And more than ever, I want to say that it's a collaborative work between men and women, so to be able to continue to lift us up. Because without that man opening me his door at that time, trusting me, no experience, nothing, paying me for not knowing anything, I wouldn't be there today.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because with so much going on in the world, people waking up. We had Andre on. I'm sure you know Andre. And, Andre's this kid. He didn't have any credentials, and Thomas Keller took him on, and opened up a huge door for Andre. And it's opening doors for other people of color and women in the business. So it is one of those things where, you want it to work one way. Like you said, you went to that woman, but, grateful for the door opening. And then obviously you're very passionate about opening doors and inclusivity and diversity inside hospitality. Safe to say?
Yeah, like it's, the last year has been extraordinarily challenging for so many, for everybody, at a lot of different levels. But for me, it's been an insane year to realize a lot of things I didn't know about where I was living today, and being kind of very ashamed of not spending more time to try to understand the new country and culture where I was living, and realizing how much prejudices or still idea of things that I see. It must be okay, or in New York it's like that. I never seen that here, but I always worked in New York in my little bubbles. And how easy it is to forget about that and forget what's really the reality. And this last month and years have been year now. It's been a year with everything with COVID that revealed there is no other option but to be inclusive, to be diverse. There is no other way, and it's how do you do it at your level, to make sure your action have a real impact, and so yeah, it's been a lot of time also for me to listen to way more things that I've never took the time to. I don't know, before it was just like work, my little work on my, and suddenly you realize there's so much places, voices and things I never really pay attention to, and it's still a lot to listen and to digest and to see what can be done really, what's the part I can play really to continue to make the change happen. But if there is no change, there will be no more, like in industry or whatever. That's just, I don't see how it's not possible. It's fed by that. It had to be fed by that. So how do you do that? To reach the maximum, to make long-standing change, small changes and long-standing change. That's a lot of questions.
That is a lot of questions, and that's why I did not practice law. People have it's so hard to make change, but it's not saying. That being said, we still have to be moving towards that. So you get this job, he takes you on, and then while you're there, then you know nothing about wine, and then while you're there, you become the best young sommelier in the Loire Valley and in Bretagne.
Bretagne, yeah.
I mean, like, what you said you learned fast. What does your life look like to earn both of those honors so quickly?
Um, I was just working and trying to understand. I was, I've once again I've been very lucky because I was good at school, and then I kind of I practiced sports at when I was a teenager. I wanted to become a professional tennis player. So you learn discipline.
I say discipline, focus,
You learn discipline
and
focus.
hard work through sports.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm 25, I make no money. My parents are gonna stop. like, where is my career? I'm just starting to be and today when I'm hiring people at 21 that know so much about wine, I'm like, 21, I have no idea. No, but I was like, I have no time to lose, and let's put the work on. He gives me a chance. I have a chance. I can't. That's my responsibility to take my chance. And what does it imply? It implies tasting, it implies taking notes, it implies finding the best way to remember, finding the way to find my answers. And I was not shy, so I could go and ask people. When you're 25, you're not 16. My colleagues, at school, I was with 16 years old kids.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the same life experience. So very quickly on, I was like, I know where I need to look to understand stuff. And I'm going to go for it. And man, it's, service at the end of the night. I was taking notes, every wine I was tasting that night, going on internet at the end of the night, looking for the wine, that's what I tasted, that's what the wine is from, that's the name of the guy, boom, 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 remembering, and every day, and just building up, and no distraction because we're in the middle of nowhere in Brittany. And went for it. And then competition, I did a bunch of competition. First, because I always thought, and I'm still thinking I'm an imposter in that field. Especially in France, once again, if you don't go through this great culinary school and hospitality school and do this hierarchical rise, you kind of you are a little bit looked down. It's like you need to go to this restaurant and do this next job and next job and next job. And I didn't do that at all. I went directly here. So I always had a feeling of imposter. And unfortunately, in that job, in that business, in the wine industry, one of the only way to get credential and to be credible for a lot of people, especially at that time for men of a certain age, was to go through competition. So until I win some stuff, they won't take me seriously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I went for that. And then I continued to do competition after that to push me to continue to learn more. And because at one point I really wanted to say, guys, I'm here. I'm here for the long run, and you should listen to what I have to say. But you can tap, you can talk, until you get this kind of stuff. It was not. I was not loud enough. But that changed when you. The look changed when you start. But that was unfortunately how it worked at that time.
Yeah.
And so this way I did that.
Okay. Well, listen. Wow. So much more to talk about. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of Pascaline in just a second. Okay, we're back. So you have this crazy ascent in your career in France, and then in 2009, you came to New York City as beverage director for Rouge Tomate. What was that transition like from France to New York City?
That was exciting. No, but
I wish you could see. I've got to put these up. The expression on her face was awesome, so awesome.
No, but but of course that was exciting. No, but I was. What happened is I was hired by a Belgian company. I moved to Paris. I worked in Paris.
Okay, so you were in Paris. So
I was in Paris, and I worked in Belgium for them in Brussels, and that company was going to open New York. So I was hired to be part of a chain. It was supposed to be a chain of restaurants.
I'm eating my words on natural wine. This is tasty, guys.
Oh no.
It's very good. It's very good. Anyway, yeah.
So the goal was for me to be based in Paris and to help them open restaurants a little bit all over Europe and New York. And it was a restaurant based on sustainability. It was a green restaurant. It was a slow food restaurant. And I was in charge of a beverage program where everything was supposed to be sourced as naturally and organically as possible and served the same way. The built-up was really everything from A to Z was thought about sustainability. And so I started to travel to the US thanks to them. And New York, first time, oh la la, that was awesome. 2007, like I will remember, like the first time you arrived to New York, like, oh my God. And so I traveled quite a lot to help them open. And then we opened with an American team, and then it was a week after Lehman Brothers collapsed. And so the opening was quite complicated for like 380 seats restaurant on Madison. So they asked me to move in 2009 for 6 months to help the restaurant to revamp not the concept, but to find a new team. And I stayed. I stayed because I knew I stayed because I fell in love, because I met my wife the first week I arrived in New York. So
so many of these wine stories start with falling in love.
So voilà, I fell in love. So that was a big one. And then New York was, I was a pretty strong-headed person in France for the more traditional wine intelligentsia at that time. I liked already natural wine. I was already extraordinarily committed to defend alternative type of farming. I was asking a lot of questions once again. I was not buying the marketing bullshit of a lot of stuff. I just was not feeling at ease in Paris. I felt way better in Brussels. At one point, I was thinking about moving to London. And then when I arrived in New York, you just felt an extraordinary amount of freedom with this idea that working hard, you could achieve a certain level of success. Not necessarily financially, but you could go somewhere. My company was giving me whole freedom to build my program. And it was the beginning of the blossoming of all this natural wine industry, distribution, importation. So I could be with my wife. It was no problem for me to be gay. I could be, and so I felt New York an amazing place to be. And the world of wine came, and it was extraordinarily stimulating because everybody here in New York at that time, none of them were coming from hospitality school, or very few.
Right.
It was a whole gigs of people from so many different backgrounds just getting into wine because they loved wine and wanted to work in a restaurant, and it was less stuffy and it was another approach. So everybody was meeting was like, yeah, I used to be to study law, or I used to be, in the military, or I used to like to do a tattoo artist, and I'm in wine, like, oh, cool. That's awesome. And so suddenly, once again, I was fed with an incredible amount of cosmopolitanism and a lot of ideas from everywhere. And honestly, it was absolutely not as diverse as it was, but for me, it was so much more diverse than what I was dealing with Paris.
Sure. Diversity, I was thinking about it's an interesting word people need to understand. Depending on where you come from, diversity looks a lot different, right? So, I mean, you touched on there's more work to be done, but it's so funny. I have these random thoughts. Well, I have about 50,000 of them every day, but one that kind of came to me was like diversity. It looks a lot different depending on where your starting perspective is, and definitely when you come to New York City. Even just moving to New York City from New Jersey, there's this freedom. Like, that's every kid's dream. Like, as you move to New York City and you're going to make it in whatever you want to do. It's just a different world.
And whoever you want to be.
Yeah.
It's okay for you to be who you are.
Yep.
And we had a Michelin star restaurant, and I was like, that's crazy to have so many, remembering tattoos. Like, if you have a tattoo in France in Michelin star restaurant, you didn't have the job at that time. It was that crazy. It's
I don't think you could be a chef in New York if you don't have full sleeves anymore. It's like part of the new uniform. Like
yeah, it's a new uniform. But so New York was just incredible, and I just felt extraordinarily lucky to be able to be here, and it could satisfy and stimulate me to the next degree. And I was free to build my wine program.
Yeah, and that wine program got a lot of recognition. Tell me about that. So just you allude to this freedom, but I mean, it's pretty good recognition you got. I mean, how many wines? Was it over 2,000 wines or something? Or how many wines were on that list in 2017 that got all that recognition?
It's a big one. Yeah, we are like 2,500, but I don't think the number matters. I think what matters is I learned wine thanks to the producer, to the winemakers, and I felt every decision I've been making for my career, job decision, was about having a full liberty and freedom and integrity in my choices. I never wanted to be in a business where I had to put a brand because that brand was gonna, help financially the restaurant. Yeah. So I also realized, that was my philosophy background very early on, that more than a sommelier, I'm somebody working in a food industry, and I'm feeding people with something that can poison them. And I really believe that the next change is going to be a change through what we eat. I think today we are oversaturated by so many discourse and all that one of the way for us to react is emotional reaction. And when you start to eat well, good products, well farmed, full of good nutrients, preserved, and all that has such a reaction on your body, that has such a reaction of your mind, that suddenly you are reinforced. There is really restaurant means restoration, the regeneration. So I realized that I had a really big part to play, not in terms of recognition from our peers, but just saying, I have a pretty big job. I'm feeding people. Like every night, I'm giving something to somebody that can poison that person if it's not the right thing, but I'm also part of a chain that if I support a certain type of industry, I'm also supporting a certain type of farming that I deeply believe is wrong. So that's always drove my program. So, and my program were less about labels or scores or whatever. I told you I don't care about scores. I don't care about score. I care about an idea of how we should relate to our environment, the ecological environment, but the people environment. And I'm at the cross of both. And my program were always about that. Fair price for people having a very strong idea and integrity of what they are doing. And it's my job to kind of push them towards other people that may not know they exist, and just make the match and make my guests discover a whole universe they may not be aware of. And for that is why my lists were always super ecumenic, from more classically taste to more funky, to every wine region, to continue to explore, to look to Vermont, to look at, I had at that time bunch of wine from Central Europe, Georgia, Canada, Quebec, new wine region here. Like continuing to say there is, open your eyes, be curious, being amazed. That's amazing. There's so many cool stuff. And lift the label, take off the prejudices. Just try to be for yourself your own critic. Just discover how much power you have in you when you taste, and how much it opens you to the world. So this is, I think, how the program got, because they were a bit different, but not for the trend, but because that's never been the idea.
Right. And so it sounds like when you made the transition over to Racines, where you're your partner at Racines, you continued, the vin de vigneron. I mean, you kind of touched on this, but when you came over to Racines, you feel even more freedom to develop and really put your stamp on the wine list. And
I had 100% freedom at Rouge. Okay. I redeveloped everything. When I came to so I left Rouge just because at one point the decision of the development was not matching anymore really where I wanted to be, and I was with them for 10 years. So 10 years, it's a very long time.
Yeah, I've never had a job that long.
But it was fantastic. No, Racines, I was very, very lucky because Racines was already an existing restaurant created by Arnaud Tronche, who was coming from the tech and was an absolute wine lover, and he partnered with David Lillie, who has been an important figure of the wine world in New York because he opened Chambers Street Wines. It's a retail downtown, okay. And Chambers, as being a very deep, big player about what I was talking about, which is fair value, approachable price with high quality wine for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so they already had a really good fantastic list. And when I came, I just continued what I was doing. Arnaud was a little bit more classic to the French and classic wine region, and I came and I opened up to just Vermont. But I pushed. This is what I like to do. Is really to continue to look around. So it's what I did. So the list is moving a lot right now, and with COVID, COVID, we are a single tiny independent restaurant, no backing, no outdoors, not a lot of money. My previous project, we had a lot of money. No money here. So it's a new way of running a business. I'm now learning what that means to run a business. To be a managing member or partner is not being a salaried person. You are hit with the reality of what you want to dream of, and when you can really realize, and stuff takes time and step. But I have an amazing team with me, and the list is evolving. To hopefully, I want to be a list where I have the freedom to take risk, to continue to push. What does that mean here is really to be a place where it's very easy to build a wine list in New York. You have money, you have all the distributors, you have all the wine in the world. If you make a bad wine list in New York, it's because you want to do it. You want to make a bad wine list. But we are extra. Like we have all the wine. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. New York is amazing.
You can buy wine at auction. You can do it. I mean, you can do. There's no reason to have ass wines on your list. There isn't. You're right. I mean, no,
and you should not. You should not. And once again, maybe I'm going to be very dramatic here, but we see the issues of agriculture. Agriculture has a direct impact on so many things, on land property, land pollution, on the quality of the food we are feeding people with, crappy food that we have to process so much just to give taste, lack of nutrients, crisis of obesity and disease. Everything is linked to that, like the way what we farm and how we farm it, what we teach at school, what kids are eating every day at school. So we have a job to play. We can have a successful business and be more demanding to our suppliers about what we are putting in a plate and in a glass of our customer. And if we don't start like that, it's over. It's just over. There is just too much that is done already. So it's really, I really believe it's crucial, especially us in wine. Like we are talking with the most valorized product. You take a carrot, you can't use a carrot and make something that costs $10,000 a bottle. You take grapes.
Jeff Combs could.
I'm talking about a real carrot. But you're right, Jeff Combs is very good. But what I mean is we are with a 1.5 kilograms of grapes, you can make something that's worth 10,000.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So
people are super interested in wine. We are talking about one on your podcast. It's on YouTube everywhere. Yeah. There is movies. There is documentaries. It's sexy. It's like everybody's talking about it. So let's just use that to say, guys, wake up. You can drink better at a fairer price, making people pay the fair price in the vineyard, rethinking farmers, workers, and all that. And that can have an impact more globally on agriculture. And that will have an impact on every other things because people are going to be paying better, eating better, in better health, and all that's going to build on. So it looks kind of a little extreme, and we're on our little wine world on the side when there is so much more deep problem to deal with. But I believe it's linked. It's linked.
Oh, it's all linked. It's all linked. So yeah, we're all connected here. So switching gears a little bit. Done some research. Turns out you're a pretty prolific writer as well. We found that you collaborated with Alice Fearing on uncredited, but the Dirty Guide to Wine. What's the Dirty Guide to Wine about?
Dirty Guide to Wine was Alice's idea to explore the world of wine with the dirt, so what you have under your feet, which basically is saying you have grapes, you have geography, it's how we learn about wine, but maybe there is other connection we can make, and it's through the geology, and by doing so, suddenly you are connecting places that you have never think about before being connected. So it's more a book of impression. It's not a technical. It's not a scientific book on geology. Alice isn't a scientist, and I'm not a scientist. It's more that's for sure. But it's more a book about saying, what about trying to understand that the world of wine in a different way by what you have under your feet, because it really matters. And it's also a tribute to winemakers that are farming without using a certain amount of techniques and products that we know today are a problem for quality. So it was really an awesome book, because it opened for me a lot of new ideas about how to make wine accessible, how to explain it, and how to once again to connect in different ways. So we are talking about. I can talk to you about metamorphism and sedimentary soil if you want, but or granite, like granite, so like different type of magmatic soil, and the results on no.
Well, I mean, you do. But with the French accent, it sounds sexy, and with French accent, we're like, come on, tell us about us. Tell us.
No, but
tell us about granite.
Tell me about granite.
Yeah.
No, but it comes back to what we've been talking about a little bit. It's you are taught things in a certain ways.
Right.
But, and it's important because often it's the most common knowledge, and it's make conversation, discussion, exchange possible, because we are talking about the same thing, or we are learning the same way.
Right.
But at one point, it's time to, not for everybody, but for some people, to ask if what you are taught makes sense, and what are the real values that are behind what you are taught. So it's kind of critiquing. It's a, it's that's the philosophy behind me. Is a sense of why. Why are you taught something this way? Why is this way and not the other way? One example is, what that the wine smell like, bruised apple with a high acidity and low alcohol and medium plus carbonation. Okay, I can tell you that. I can make you a very specific analytic tasting for this wine. This one probably will never be put anyway. For a lot of people, this one is crap. It's full of problems, full of default. Okay, the wine is absolutely enjoyable for me. Seems to be enjoyable for you.
It's enjoyable. I mean, so
it's different.
It's different.
It's
but
different.
I like what I like, but I like different. I have to try other wines. I have to.
But because
that's just who I am. I mean,
that's a great.
I just
skill.
have to, because I can't. If I'm gonna talk shit about shit, I want to know. I'm really, but I have to. I think you learn about wine by drinking about it, and it's great. I mean, I would actually buy this. Like I would. This is like, for me, it's just summer. I mean, I know you could do so much water, but like I could pour this during the summer, and people would love it. They would love it, find it refreshing, and just it's kind of got that glow. You can chug it if you want. I'd have no problems with ice cubes in it.
And do you feel a certain level of satisfaction? Because like just a pure, like when you drink it, I'm developing a lot this idea of energy right now in wine. I think there is new ways. Going back to the analytic in one world, the way we are taught about wine. Why do you think we are taught about wine this way? Why does it really make sense?
Oh, hell no.
Okay, so why are we using it? What's the reason behind it? So, like, the question right now for that is there any other way to be able to appreciate, to talk about this kind of wine without saying, oh, it's different, or it's, it's funky, nasty, but it's like there is a moment right now that is fascinating and super exciting, is that we can create new things. We can create new way of exchanging about beverage or food, but beverage, wine in that case, in a brand new free way. And how do you do that? Why do you do that? And that's where we are right now. And a little bit the dirty guide to wine in his own way was a tickle saying, hey, why? Like, let's do things differently. And let's try to make it a common chat. So here, I love this wine. I was telling you, I love the energy in this wine. I love the way that I feel that my body is super happy drinking it. I love the way that despite being so intense, it doesn't burn. It doesn't just like there is. And when I have that sip in my mouth, it's like it's exploding. It's everywhere in every direction. It's lingering. It's like wow, it's dilating. I like that's so cool. But we never really talk about that when you talk about wine. It's bruised apple and rose and a little yeasty at the end. 89 points. Awesome.
No, but exactly right.
It's not how you stimulate people.
I mean, at the end of the day, I understand people who don't like scores, but I think the reality is, are we enjoying this right now? Is it enhancing our life? What's the experience? And those are the things that are most important. I mean, I think one of the things people don't realize is like the beauty of wine is what you're going to remember is who you had the wine with, the meal you had, and hopefully the conversation. Not we had all these high-scoring wines, right?
And I believe that the stimulation of conversation is indeed triggers by wines that are alive. What I call alive wines that are wines that are not overly processed. It's like if you really have a good meal with all the ingredients you just pick from your garden, whatever, and the ingredients are still alive. There is a sense of vibrancy, like the way that you are when you are picking a fruit just out of the tree and it was really alive. You are picking it, you are biting into it. It's so different than when you get into your supermarket and get the frozen stuff that has been forced. So that little feeling of aliveness in what you are literally putting in your body, digesting, I deeply believe that makes your brains on fire. I deeply believe that stimulates even more your senses, and it's been also proven that your brain is literally sparkling with that. You have way more pleasure, and you're gonna get way more of this conversation we are talking. I'm sure about that.
What is there was actually, he's a Frenchman, and he said, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Old-timey French philosopher.
Tell me what you drink, I will tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me what you drink, and I'll tell you how much money you have.
That's true. Especially here.
Yeah, especially here, right?
Especially here. Look at your Instagram. Oh, you were premiuming that per month.
Exactly. So we heard you're publishing a book that's coming out next year. Anything you could share with us?
It's hard.
Writing the book, or it's
writing the book is hard. It's like I'm definitely not a writer. It's a book I would have liked to read when I started.
Very nice. I have a friend who's an author. He said, write the book that you would have wanted to read, as a person.
So that's It's an ambitious book. Because it needs to be small, but not much to say. No, but it's not. It's a book of questions. It's not a book of answers. It's a book of questions. And my idea is, you can find all the encyclopedia of the world you want on the internet and all the data and the facts. There is amazing books on so many subjects everywhere. And I won't be able to do that. But my idea is to take everything from the vine to the history, to the geography, to the aesthetics, the moral, the economics, the tasting, and all that, and ask a question and say, like, I told you my favorite word is why, but one of the questions I'm trying to answer is, why is quality in wine? Who is behind the idea of quality? Who is deciding what? Like, that's going to be one of the chapters, for example, and I write a little essay every time, and I give an example, and so at the end of the book, you won't have all the appellations of France or whatever. That doesn't matter, but hopefully I will give you the tools so you can start your own journey with the reference I think are important to know. And from that, you can build your own knowledge. So my idea is, instead of feeding people with fact and data, I want my reader to feel empowered because they can ask for themselves, and then they can find their own solutions, and then they can build their own knowledge on. It's the same thing for wine. I want my people I'm trying to train, my people working with me, I don't want them to tell them, oh, that's a good wine and that's a bad wine. I want to teach them how to answer this question for themselves and to trust themselves to be their own critic. And I think that is more important than ever. We are force-fed a lot of things. We are force-fed a lot of information. How do we make the difference? How do we know what is valid or not? And that is building critical tools. And I want to give critical tools and not answers. So that's the book. It's a bit difficult to write. But there will be pictures and illustrations. So hopefully it's... and my publisher is like, you can't use that word. It's too... I'm like, oh. So it should be for everybody. It's a book. It's a book for everybody. You like wine, you don't know anything about wine, you should be able to pick it up, and you should be able to read a little bit.
Kind of like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Wine Galaxy, right? You just want people, I like what you're saying. You want people, empower them with tools, right? And that's really cool because yeah, we can get caught up in answering questions on a test and thinking that's knowledge, and it's not, you know.
That's exactly that.
Yeah.
That's exactly that. It's not like so many exams you just need to remember stuff by heart. But
right.
What's the point? There is no point. The point is for you to be able, if you are in front of something, to be able to assess, use everything you know, and find the right solution. Because at the end, we all know that, but every single day is about resolving issues and problems. It's about taking decisions and taking the less worse decisions. And there is, like, I don't really like the word intersection, but everything we are doing, every single thing is at the cross of so many strengths, economical, social, like everything. So how do you use wine, once again, as a field to learn how to navigate, and to navigate with the most integrity you can, because you would have been able to try to learn or find the right information for you to take the right decision. And that's really what matters. And for me, wine is just a tool. You know, it's a cool tool because it's delicious and it's made in beautiful region and people are great. Winemaker, like, you know, it's like I'm not working in an industry that is like a little depressing, and I'm not selling bonds, for example. but that's the goal. That's the goal. And if I can achieve it, I will definitely be very hangover with the days the book is published.
Well, that is a good place to end here with you. Pascaline, thank you so much for coming on the Black Wine Guy Experience. Tell people where they can find you, how they can be a part of what you're doing, and learn more about you.
Yeah, I'm on the floor every night at the restaurant. Downtown Racines is on 94th Chamber Street. So yeah, I'm there. I'm there every night with the team, and I'm pretty active. Less and less active on Instagram, but the best way to reach out is through Instagram right now. You can reach out to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I try to answer on timely fashion.
Well, again, I thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for having me. That was That was fun.
You are such a wealth of information. We could talk for hours. We'll have to do that sometime where you don't have to go to work
and you can come have dinner.
And come have dinner and drink tons of bottles. Everybody's MJ. Until next time, cheers to the Mavericks. We had a true life philosopher on the show today, a definite deep thinker, and a hell of a natural wine drinker. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks again.